Alright, so this will be the quick review, real quick video on review sheet number 20. Hopefully it helps you out to get through it this week. First one's here. Now these say solve the equations mentally. Now I know that we haven't learned equations yet. That's actually going to be chapter 8. So right now we're doing algebraic expressions. Chapter 7 is what we're starting. And chapter 8 is algebraic equations, okay? So you just got to ask yourself, you know that means, like this one means multiplication. Just ask yourself, what would I be multiplying 16 by that would give me 48? It's important to remember, we've talked about this before, but inverse operations, like an inverse just means opposite. So the opposite of multiplication is division. The opposite of addition would be subtraction. Okay, so when you're trying to figure out what M is, or you're trying to figure out what H is, and those kind of things, you can think backwards and say, okay, I'm trying to figure out 16 times something equals 48. Now think about this. This is a part and a part, because we know when we're multiplying, we always know the parts. This is obviously a whole, but look what we know. So we know the whole, and we know the part. So then you can figure that out by using division, the inverse of multiplication. And then, but you just got to remember, it's got to always be whole divided by part, which we've talked about. You guys all should know what I'm talking about. These other ones, sometimes it helps to just guess and check. This is 4. You're adding 4 to something. Okay, you're adding 4 to something on this one. My advice, think about what that something has to be. I'll help you out with this one. If we're doing 4 plus something equals 5, we're basically saying 1. So you need to figure out what H could be that would give you 3 minus 1 would give you, or I'm sorry, 3 minus what would give you 1. Okay, let me explain that again because I feel like I just made it more confusing. Okay, you know that it's 4 plus something. This, what you see in parentheses, it's 4 plus something. You know that something, or that something plus 4 equals 5. So you know that 3 minus H has to equal 1 because 4 plus 1 is 5. So then just ask yourself, what would you take from 3 that would give you 1? Okay? So those ones you can kind of guess and check a little bit to help you out on those. Okay? Here, these are pattern questions. You've been seeing these a long time in elementary school. This would be an elementary type of question. You probably remember them. You just got to figure out what the rule is. Okay? Always start basic. For instance, when I first looked at this, the first thing I tried was plus 5, just to see if that's what it was, because 4 plus 5 is 9, but 5 plus 5 is not 19. Or I mean, 9 plus 5 is not 19. Okay? So you can't multiply by any whole number to get from 4 to 9. So right away, you got to know that this is probably some sort of two-step. You're adding, then you're dividing. You're adding, then you're multiplying. You're subtracting, then you're dividing. Something is happening like that. Okay? And then obviously you need to find the next 3 terms. But I think you guys, from what I've seen, are going to be fine with that one. Okay, fraction work. Again, reviewing 5th grade material. The only one that's not 5th grade on here, on this box, would be this question right here. That was chapter 3 for us, so I'll write chapter 3. I would obviously need to see work here. Work here. Here, really not any work. Okay. You know, you should all know that multiplying fractions are about the easiest thing that we do with fractions. Okay, this one, since they're already in fraction form, I would only need to see one step, which would be that algorithm. Review chapter 3 if you're struggling with how to do that. These other ones, when you're adding and subtracting, you just got to remember you must have a common denominator. Common denominator. I'll just shorten that up so you know. And then obviously whatever you do to the bottom, you must do to the top. And then from there, subtract. The one thing you must do, though, and I've made myself very clear throughout the year so far, even though it doesn't say simplify, we always simplify. So for those of you watching this video, you're going to have no issues because you know simplifying is mandatory. You don't have an option. Okay, number 4. We did one of these last week. You're just telling me if they are proportional. Remember, another word for proportional is just, it's not exact. I mean, it means equal, but you use the words a little bit differently. It's kind of like saying equal, but with different amounts of the item. Okay? So you should know 4 method. Well, let me do it the way I've been showing you. You should know that there are what I called the big 3 methods and the little 4th. And you guys should all know what that means. If you're not sure, look back to your chapter 4 notes or chapter 4 formative, summative, anything like that. It'll be in there. Okay? All right, strip diagrams. Okay, this is from chapter 6, what we just got done with. So I don't foresee any issues here. Just you can go back and review your chapter 6 learning target number 4 notes, or the chapter 6 learning target number 4 video, and then go from there. You guys, I think, will be fine on this because it's so fresh right now. Okay, here, this is also chapter 6. This is learning target number 8. Okay, the way I've always taught you to do this, and you can review your notes, but I've always said go ahead and just do 2 different proportions, 2 different percent proportions. Now, there's a different way to do it, but I always tell you that this is the safest way, in my opinion, to do it. That'll keep you from making that mistake. Obviously, this first one is going to represent your tax. The bottom one then would represent your tip. Your food bill is here. Remember, that is always a whole, so that always goes here. So it would be 6570 would go there, 6570 would go there. Okay, and then obviously when you figure out your tax amount, your tip amount, and you know your food amount, you can figure out your total final cost. Okay? All right, number 7, putting these in order. Remember, we've had these on a few of the last tier review sheets, I believe. But you could convert all these to fractions. Now, they already are fractions. You can do that. That's fine. You can convert them to what I call regular numbers. Some people would call those decimals. But I like to call them regular numbers because regular numbers are just any number. 5, 6, 0.2, 7.49. Those are just regular numbers. They don't have a percent sign on them, and they don't have a fraction bar. That's what regular numbers are. And obviously, then you could do percentages. Now, really, I've been eliminating fractions the last couple weeks off of like the ones I've wanted you to choose to do. But on this one, they're already in fraction form. You just, again, have to have a common denominator. But in previous years, students have found it's still much easier to go ahead and make them regular numbers. So we know that all fractions are division problems. And then we can order them from the regular numbers. Okay? So make sure you do least to greatest. But this is right there. So, all right. Here we go. This is also a chapter 6, learning target number 8 question, finding discounts. Okay. Now, it goes through here and it says that this is how much I charge per week for training. Okay. I offered Jamie a 30% discount. Okay, that's fine. We need to figure out how much this person is going to owe for, after, because she doesn't have to pay $330. So you're going to have to figure out that discount. Again, using a proportion would be the best way. Part to whole equals percent over 100. There is another way. I prefer you to do this one because I think it's just safer. 30, and then you put your money on there. That then is going to give you your discount. Okay? If that gives you your discount, then remember, discounts are saving you money. So you wouldn't add on that to 330. It's going to be cheaper for Jamie because I offered her a cheaper rate. Okay? Okay, this is an order of operations. I've said this the last couple weeks also. Here you have the 4 operations. Okay? Some of you get frustrated when I grade, or when we grade and you don't have it, you do 2 steps at once or whatever, and you miss it. Well, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm just trying to protect that you guys don't make mistakes. That's the only reason I do it this way, because I know what mistakes 6th graders make, and when you try to do multiple steps at a time, there are consequences, and usually it means missing it. And I don't want you guys to do that. So I've basically always said I don't give you 28 of these that you have to do. I usually give you 1 or 2, and they are time consuming. But, I mean, that's just the way it is. So, obviously, you should write PEMDAS just to keep that, make sure you haven't forgotten the order of operations. Okay? Now, as you go down through here, when I look, I see these parentheses right there. Now, remember, every parentheses has a little mini PEMDAS. Okay? So, then you would go inside those parentheses, the red ones, and you would look for more parentheses. So, you should do this first. Okay? So your first line should look like this and then rewrite everything. But what I see students doing is they're going, okay, 1 plus 7 is 8, 2 plus 9 is 11, 11 minus 8, oh, okay, that's 3. That is what I don't want. You either do one of those, one of that, one of that, or one of that. That's your only options. If you start doing multiple ones of these each time before you rewrite, it's going to be wrong. I've made it clear since you can go back to review sheet number 1 at the beginning of the year, and this is how I made you do it. And I have a higher success rate with people getting them right because of it. Okay? These ones we did last week also. They're just showing repeated. Remember, exponents are showing repeated multiplication. So this is just 2/3 times 2/3, and do top times top times top, bottom times bottom times bottom. Make sure it's in the simplest form. Now, I do want to talk about this one real quick. I'm going to help you out with this one because this one's weird because it is 4/5 times 4/5 times 4/5 times 4/5. Now, when you multiply top times top times top times top, it's going to give you 1,024 over 3,125. That's what it gives you. And I know that a lot of you are going to simplify this in your calculator, and all of a sudden it's going to come up and give you a decimal. And that decimal is, I'll just type it in so we can just have it, 1024 ABC 3125. I'm not exactly sure why the calculators do this, but it gives you 0.3, 2, 7, 6, and 8. Okay, I'm not sure why it doesn't just give you that again, but this is in simplest form. This is the answer I'm looking for right there. That's the answer. Okay, I don't know why simplifying it turns into a decimal. I'm not sure why the calculator does that, but it's obviously because the numbers get too large. Because any other time, if you type in 2ABC3 into your calculator, like if you're doing the fraction 2/3, if you do that, it'll come up and give you 2/3. It'll give you the fraction right back to say it's already in simplest form. For some reason, the bigger one gives you a decimal. I have no idea why. I don't know if it if you have a maximum number of digits to get used and it won't recognize it. I don't know. But just make sure you have that as your answer. I just gave you the answer, so nobody in my classes should miss it. Okay. The rest of those are the same way. Then just do it like we talked about here. Okay. Go to the back. Okay. Now this question right here. Okay. You just basically it gives you 3 points that the rover is going to land. It's going to land there. It's going to explore up to here, and then it's going to go to the left to there. You got to plot those. Now the big thing you got to notice on this, and I know it's kind of hard to read, but it really doesn't matter because as long as you can see what's the x and the y is, then you're fine. But as you can see, this is skipping 1. So basically, it's like this. This is 1/2. This would be 1 1/2. This would be 2 1/2, and so on. Same thing here. This would be 1/2. This would be 1 1/2. So it's actually the interval that the vertical and the horizontal number line is going up by is 1/2. Even though it's not numbered, it's still going up by 1/2. Okay. So obviously you're going to end up making it. You're going to see when you plot those points up there that I underlined. You're going to end up making what looks like a rectangle. You're going to have to finish that rectangle, and then that point's going to go right there. Just remember the x value, the x coordinate is the first number. That's that one. That's the one that goes horizontally. So that's how far we went to the right, like that. The second number will dictate how far you go up or down, but these are positive, so up. Okay, part C. You then need to find the length and the width, horizontal length or the vertical. So this is basically saying how long is it this way. This is saying how tall is it essentially, or how tall is it vertically up and down. Want to make everybody see this right here. This is like the big thing with this one. This is kind of like the trick that we're trying to make sure you see, because this is the kind of stuff you may see on a standardized test. But you can see that 2 squares going left to right is 1 kilometer. Okay, so a lot of you are finding an answer, but you're like counting it as 1, 2, 3, and that's not right. Now that same understanding goes this way too. So if I were to draw an arrow like they did it and put 1 km and then draw an arrow from there to there, so it's still, this is still 1 is what I'm saying. This is right here is 1. Okay, so that'll impact this answer here. I see a lot of people not seeing that little key right there, and it's throwing the answer off. And then obviously from there we know that area equals base times height, and since you found this one is your base and this one's your height, or vice versa, it doesn't matter. So you just find the area then. Okay, next page. Okay, now this one, I should see a proportion on this one. Okay, because it says per percussion player. So you know right away that this is a unit rate question. So you know that one's got to go there. Now, there's a couple different ways you could do it, and I should put percussion. So that would mean bass would go here, bass would go here. I'm sorry, bass, jeez. Brass would go there, brass would go there, percussion would go there. You could pick any one of these to use as your fake ratio. It doesn't matter. You could pick any one of them to be your top and your bottom here. Or you could add them all together, do 123 plus 42 plus 150, and get that as your amount. And then add up your amount of percussion instrument players in each band and put that there. Either way, okay? But whatever you get there, that's obviously going to be your amount of brass instrument players compared to one percussion player. This question right here gets people a lot, you know, and when you take the air test later on this year, you guys will, this is probably going to be some real interactive thing where you'll actually, like these dots won't be there. I mean, this question might be it might be different all the way around, but you may actually have to take 3/4 and click it and drag it up to where it goes. Okay? Now, my thing is, always think about the opposite of negative 3/4, which hopefully you guys all remember means it's the opposite is just the positive or the negative version of the number. So it's got the same absolute value, same distance to 0. It's the same distance to 0, but on the other side of 0. So if you thought about where 3/4 was, that should help you identify where negative 3/4 was, because let's just say, let's assume this is wrong. Well, actually, let me pick a new one. Let's say 2.5. If I was wanting to know 2.5, I'll just do this. I'll just make one up. That way you guys can see it. Negative 2.5. If I wasn't sure where that was over here, I would say, well, where's 2.5? And I would say, okay, 0, 1, 2. What's halfway to 3 would be right there. Well, if I'm measuring this and I'm saying, oh, okay, that's the distance right there from 2.5 to, whoops, I went too far. If that's the distance right there to 0, then I know that on the other side of 0, it's got to have that same exact distance. So I can see right there where B is, that would be negative 2.5. They have the same absolute values. They're the same distance from 0. So if you can figure out where 3/4 is, then it'll be in that exact same distance away on the other side of 0. Okay, this question we've had a couple times throughout this year already. A lot of you are finding that, okay, he has 36 bottles. He's selling them for 75 cents each. And you guys are able to figure out how much money he's going to sell all those bottles of water for. Let's say, I'm going to make up a number. This is wrong. This is wrong, but I'm just going to make it up. Let's say that he was able to sell all of his water and get $50. Okay? Now that's fine. He got 50 bucks. But the real word here that you have to pay attention to is the word profit. The word profit means how much you're actually going to have after you subtract out what you initially put into it. Okay? So for this one here, Thomas had to buy the money, or he had to buy the water. He had to buy the water up front. So he's not starting with $0. He's starting with, if you want to think about it like this, negative $4.69. So the first $4.69 just gets him back to 0. That's what profit really is. You've got to take out that investment. Okay? So I think you'll be fine with that one. And finally, last page. This question's pretty easy here. You just have 2 points. You just got to know how to plot them. Remember, this is your X, this is your Y. Remember, you walk to the elevator first, so you either go right or left to the elevator first, then you go up or down in the elevator. Okay? And then once you do that, you're going to have to figure out how many miles it is to the school. Notice this little sentence right there. Each square, so that means one square, is representing 1 mile. So use that as your key on this one. Okay? And finally, this question, Jared wants to save $100 to buy a tennis racket. Okay, that's fine. He saves $8 each week. So what I do when I do this one is I always make a little chart. So 1 week, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't know how far I need to go. I'm just going to make kind of a chart, and I'm going to say, okay, he's going to save $8. But here's what makes this question a little bit on the tricky side. His mother is going to give him 25 cents for each dollar that he saves. Okay? So that means every dollar is 25 cents that he's going to get from his mom. $1. So if you went down through here and put did something like this, you could figure out how much money he's going to get from his mom each week. Well, and I'll let you go from there. And then from there, you can, okay, his mom's going to give him this amount of money each week, and then we can add them together, and then we can have a total like this. And then basically we can see how much he has after 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks. And then whenever he gets to his goal of $100, that is how many weeks it's going to take him. Okay? All right, I hope this helped. See you guys.